Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Harris. As the CIO, you're the senior official at the department and that your division is looking for leadership and guidance. The IG reported in her investigation into the alleged misconduct that you used subordinate staff to run an outside business and failed to properly report this business on a mandatory financial disclosure form. Do you dispute that report this time?
I do dispute that as articulated.
Okay, but do you dispute that you failed to report the income?
I do not dispute that.
Okay. And although neither the department nor any law enforcement authorities, the law enforcement did not elect to prosecute, even the acting secretary stated in a 2015 memorandum to the IG that you, and I quote, displayed certain lapses in judgment. Knowing that, and not disputing that you failed to report that income, and you agree with some portions of the report, what specific steps have you taken to earn back the trust of not only the department, but in particular the employees that you supervise?
Thank you for the question. I want to say categorically that these were hobbies that I enjoyed for the greater part of my life. And the employees that wanted to engage me, two of them, actually wanted to learn from me. And I am a teacher. That's one of the things I love to do. Since 2012, I have severed my relationship with the vendor in question. And I'd like to also say that in 2004, when I sat on a panel, not selecting the vendor, but providing a review for the panel, I was not a personal friend of that vendor. That friendship did not occur until 2008. And at that point, I am completely removed from the acquisition process.
So what have you done to earn back the trust of the people that you supervise?
I have communicated with them, explaining to them, providing transparency, and that's pretty much what I've done.
And do you believe that that alone is sufficient to allow you to effectively serve as the CIO of the Department of Education?
I'm sorry, would you ask that question again?
So you said that what you have done to earn back their trust is communicate with them about severing your ties with the contractor. Do you think that's sufficient to make you an effective CIO at the Department of Education?
I think working hard and actually demonstrating that I'm passionate about the job and I'm providing not only the direction but the time to do the job right. I'd also like to put my job as CIO in context, if I may. Cybersecurity is absolutely critical to the federal government. However, it is only one of the mission-critical responsibilities under my leadership. For example, I run the entire financial management platform. We have received 13 clean audit opinions. We have an incredible IT investment management program. We have the best grants management system in the federal government. One, I think, should look at the totality of my leadership, not just cyber, even though I agree that the department had a poor record in improving cybersecurity. But again, it is only one aspect of my job, though it is a critical aspect.
Thank you. Acting Secretary King, both the IG's report of the investigation in 2013 and the addendum to that report in 2015 raised not just concerns about this specific issue here with your CIO, but the general culture at the Department of Education. Are you at all concerned that the IG's concerns indicate a broader cultural problem at your department when it comes to employees meeting ethical standards?
Certainly, I've sent a clear message to the entire department that we are committed to ethical conduct, as did my predecessor, Secretary Duncan. And with respect to this specific issue, it was taken seriously. Counseling was provided. The conduct that was of concern in the IG report ended by 2013. And cybersecurity is a top management priority for the department. We've made substantial progress since last January when I joined the department, but there's clearly much more work to do to ensure that.
So how are you instilling to your employees that this is not something that will be tolerated in the department if all you've done is given him counseling sessions? Where is the stick as opposed to just the, the pat and telling him, don't do it again, and it hasn't occurred again? How do people know that they cannot be involved in this kind of behavior? Is there anything procedurally that you have done with Mr. Harris or moving forward put in place that will demonstrate that to people?
We provide ethics training to all new employees and annual ethics training to all employees. Ms. Winchell runs a strong department-wide ethics program. In the specific case of Dr. Harris, as I indicated previously, after the IG report, Deputy Secretary Miller and then Deputy Secretary Shelton reviewed the IG report with the General Counsel, who advised that there were no violations of law or regulations or policy, but nonetheless both took the step of providing counseling, which I think was humbling for Dr. Harris, made clear that the conduct needed to end. All of the activities cited ended by 2013. When I joined the department in 2015, the outstanding issue was the addendum resolving the referral to the Department of Justice. Department of Justice also found there was no justification for further action in terms of a violation of law. I again consulted with the General Counsel. Again, she advised that there was no violation of law or regulations. However, because I was concerned about sending a clear message about the importance of ethical conduct, I counseled Dr. Harris again and asked the General Counsel to provide written guidance to Dr. Harris on all of these matters.
Has anything been sent out to the employees or anything letting people know that how this conduct was not being tolerated? I mean, personally, I don't think that counseling is humbling for an individual that then allows them, that's just a way to keep your job. But I'm just trying to see if you believe that what's been done will keep your department on track in the areas that the CI is responsible for, and that you believe, do you believe that Mr. Harris can effectively continue in the position that he has now?
I believe that the evidence is clear that the activities have stopped. It is clear that Dr. Harris understands the gravity of the impression that was created by his activities. His remorse is evident. We have made significant progress on cybersecurity over the last year that I've been at the department, and Dr. Harris has been a key participant in that. He also is performing ably in other areas of his work as CIO in terms of infrastructure, planning for the continued upgrades to technology at the department. The message around ethical conduct is clear from me and certainly from the training that is provided to all employees. We make clear that not only do we need ethical conduct, but we can't even have the appearance of any impropriety.
Thank you. That's very generous of you, Mr. Chairman. I won't forget that. Thank you. I just wanted to go back and ask some more questions. And this is really about the past conduct, the allegations concerning the past conduct. Ms. Winchell, in your testimony on today's hearing, you stated that in the time you reviewed the Inspector General's 2013 report, your understanding was that the activities had already ceased and that the matter had been referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation. Is that correct of your understanding at the time you reviewed the Inspector General's April 2013 report?
That's correct.
Okay. And Dr. Harris, had you stopped the activities at issue before the IG issued the April 2013 report?
Yes, my the last activity I had was 2012.
Last activity, what would that activity have been?
My hobbies.
Okay. And that would have been the detailing and the home technology, the theater.
That is correct. I still detail, but I do not accept compensation. It is still a hobby of mine.
Okay. And I understand that you had, and then going back to a contract with eSource Technologies, it's our understanding that you have a personal relationship with the president of that company, a contractor for the department, and the IG's report references a contract awarded in 2004. What was your position in 2004 with the Department of Education?
In 2004, I was the deputy CFO, and I was not a personal friend of that vendor then. I knew him, I knew of him, as I do other vendors, but I was not a personal friend.
And were you involved in the procurement or the contracting as the deputy CFO in 2004?
I may have sat on the panel, but I did not select the vendor.
What does sitting on the panel mean?
You simply review what the vendors provide.
You're reviewing and then discussing with the others on the panel your
That-
recommendation?
That is correct.
Okay, so you were part of the group that made recommendations to the ultimate contracting, but you say you were not a personal friend
That is
in
correct.
2004.
That is correct.
When did you consider yourself a personal friend?
Approximately 2008, when I moved into the same area where the vendor lived.
And did you have any contact with the vendor between 2004 and 2008?
I'm sure I saw him as a result of him having business at the department, but I didn't, our families weren't friends. We didn't travel together. We didn't.
So you did that after 2008? When you say you
After
traveled?
2008, yes, we
You
became
traveled
friends.
together,
Absolutely.
your families?
Absolutely,
And
we were friends.
that friendship was started because you moved into the area, or he moved into the same area?
I moved into the same area, and we realized that we lived in the same area because we ran into each other in the area.
Okay. And then, Ms. Winchell, in your testimony, you stated that it's not clear that a close personal friendship had formed at the time Dr. Harris was involved in activities relating to the owner's company.
That's correct.
Can you elaborate on that? What did you mean by that?
Well, you know, we all create friendly relationships at work, and the way the rule works, actually, the rule doesn't include friendship as the kind of relationship that necessarily gives rise to a conflict. And the Office of Government Ethics did that fairly deliberately. They provide a process that you can go through to evaluate whether the friendship would give rise to a appearance of a conflict of interest, basically evaluating whether a reasonable person would question your impartiality if you were to work on a matter involving that individual. So when I'm looking at these questions, and employees do call me from time to time about whether or not they should work on something that involves a friend, I'll ask them a series of questions like, have you gone on vacation with this friend? How long have you known them? You know, sometimes you have people that meet their significant others. Technically, this rule doesn't apply to them until they're actually sharing a household, but obviously, that's an important thing to know. The report of investigation, the only evidence there is in the report of a close personal friendship is when the vacations occurred, which was, I believe, in 2000 in or around 2010.
Before people go on vacations together, they're usually eating and socializing and everything else before you rise to the occasion that I think I can go on a
Absolutely.
personal vacation.
That's true, but there's
So
no...
you don't think that there was a personal relationship before they went on a vacation?
Well, I think there probably was, but there's no evidence of that.
Did you ask the
except-
questions?
Well, Dr. Harris has said on several occasions that the close personal friendship started in 2008.
Did you ask the questions?
I did not ask that question at that time because I
Those
didn't
series
know...
of questions that you ask employees when they call and ask, do I have a personal friendship? When you're looking into this, did you ask him those personal questions? Those series of questions?
I did not ask those questions at the
So
time.
you just took his word for when that personal friendship began?
Yes, I did.
Did you think in hindsight, does that make sense now? I mean, I've been in
Well,
ethics counsel. I was counsel on the House Ethics Committee.
Okay.
And I think I would have gone back and looked because I don't want the employee to get into trouble. Not that I'm just trying to cover myself, but that I don't want him to get into trouble.
I certainly appreciate your point, and I think at the time my thought process was that the friendship had ended, so I wasn't concerned about the ongoing implications of that friendship, but I think you're making a valid point.
And so if you were to ask those questions now, do you think there may have been some overlap in time period when there was a personal friendship and he had involvement with this, so that the 2013 date may not be the hard date that we should be looking at?
Well, the hard date that I was looking at for when the friendship became a close personal friendship was 2008 to 2010, and the activity involved in his participation in the contract was prior to that time.
Okay, and why did you say his activity was prior to that time? Does he not still have an ongoing contract with the Department of Education?
There may be an ongoing contract, but there's no ongoing friendship at this point. In order for the appearance problem to exist, there has to be both, you know, the rules are about, this particular rule is about whether or not you have a personal interest or friendship on one hand and an official duty on the other hand. And at this point in time, the friendship doesn't exist. And as I understand it, he also doesn't participate in these contracts.
the president of the company no longer participates in the contract?
No, Dr. Harris no longer participates does not participate, doesn't have a role in the implementation of the contracts.
Ms. Bruce, do you, and you know that, Ms. Winchell, how do you know that?
Well, the only participation that's detailed in the report is from 2004, 2005, 2006.
If I can,
Yes.
if you gentlemen would yield, there are still contracts that this company has that you have a responsibility for, right? I mean, you're the CIO. They are contracts with the Department of Education regarding CIO issues.
But I do not have responsibility for the acquisition
How can you claim you don't
process.
have a responsibility when you're the Chief Information Officer? Those contracts are still outstanding, Ms. Winchell. They're still there. They're still in place. They still get money from the American taxpayer via the Department of Education.
Sir,
Correct?
if I may, the way the department is organized, and most agencies are organized this way, when it comes to acquisition, not just the selecting a vendor, but the payment of those vendors, that is completely removed from the CIO's organization. It is purposeful. There is a firewall between me and any contract activities, and so I can't influence in any shape, form, or fashion. Now, as CIO, I do set IT strategy, but I do not select vendors, products, or services.
But you did, according to the Inspector General, previously engage in the selection. According to the Inspector General, there was one contract where another company's proposal was, quote, significantly greater than the proposed by other offerers, end quote. And that the IG writes that the decision was changed to go to your friend William Hall's company, quote, based on at least in part on input from Mr. Harris, end quote.
That had to have been 2004, and I had no friendship with that individual.
You've gotten promoted since then, and the contracts continue. So to say that you have no interaction, no responsibility, you're the Chief Information Officer. This is the ethical problem that it then presents, because you did help them get this contract.
I'm sorry, I disagree, sir. I'm sorry.
What? You're the CIO, and they're a vendor. How do you not have responsibility for them?
The firewall that's created on purpose with the contracting organization and the rest of the department, including CIO, and especially CIO when it comes to IT contracts, I am completely removed from and have no authority or influence on that process. That is the way we're organized, and most agencies are organized that way.
So you have no input on whether or not they're effectively carrying out the contract that involves information services?
That is
You don't
correct.
send reports or anything to say, this relationship, this contractor is performing the duties that I need for my job correctly or incorrectly?
That is the contracting officer representative's job. That
And
is
when
not my
does
job.
where does the contracting officer get that information from?
They get it from the project manager and the people working with the vendor, but they would not get it from me.
And the project manager and the people working with the vendor would be your employees?
That is correct.
And would any of those employees be the people who worked for you on your hobby?
No.
Were they people who report directly to you and give you information about whether the contract was being performed properly or not?
They would provide me briefings on the status of our
And
various
you
investments.
have no input or say into whether or not that's yay, nay, okay, sounds good,
That is
let's
correct.
continue?
From a contractual perspective, that is correct.
Wait a minute, so you're saying that when your employees give you reports, you don't have anything to say about it?
I will provide my input, but I don't make contractual statements.
But you provide the input that then goes back to the contractual people who are determining whether or not this has been performed properly or not.
I think that's an accurate statement.
So you are in some measure involved in this, whether it be from you stating that the contractor has performed or not performed the work of the contract properly. Yes? No?
I would still say that I'm removed
Wait,
from...
that's yes or no? That's yes or no?
I would still say I'm removed from the acquisition
So
process.
I didn't ask you about the acquisition. I'm asking you if, as the CIO and the reports for the contract come to you, if you have any input in whether or not those are being performed properly or not.
Yes.
Thank you. So in that stating that, are there additional steps that you believe, Ms. Winchell, Secretary King, that should be taken to ensure that possibly we need to look at this a little further? Because it appears that when the IG made the report, you took at face value what the IG said and didn't do your own digging in this, Ms. Winchell.
Well, I do rely on the IG report, that's true. I assume that they do a full and thorough investigation, so I did rely on the report. I don't do separate investigation. I don't have authority to do investigation, and have actually been instructed not to investigate wrongdoing because it can interfere with the IG's ability to do their job.
But when you're counseling, these
I do
counseling
ask
sessions, you didn't think it was appropriate to speak with Danny on a more deeper level about what he was and was not doing?
I did speak to him on a fairly deep level about how the rules apply to personal friendships, how they apply to relationships with subordinates, and also misuse of position and misuse of government equipment. We've actually had 2 lengthy conversations about that over the course of the last few years, focused specifically on the concerns raised in the report.
Congresswoman, if I might, I think
Yes.
what you're raising is exactly the issue of appearance of impropriety on which Dr. Harris was counseled by Deputy Secretary Miller, then Deputy Secretary Shelton, and by me. It's the reason, my understanding, that he ended the relationship entirely in 2013 so that there would not be an appearance of impropriety. What is clear, though, on the sequencing of the contracting is that the only findings that the IG had was that the personal friendship began in 2008. These contract matters occurred in 2004. But again, in order to ensure that there is no appearance of impropriety, he was counseled on these matters and ended the relationship in
But
2013.
Secretary King, you have an enormously important job. Your job is to educate the American children, our future. And you don't have time to be dealing with stuff like this. But what I'm finding in this hearing that's really disturbing is that it's taken all of these other members of Congress questioning Dr. Harris and going through this with a fine-tooth comb to find out that a lot of the statements that he's made in that IG report really don't cover up the entire truth of what was going on. To say that he was not involved in the requisition of the contract is correct after 2004. But to say he had no say and involvement in that contract is not a true statement. And I think that's not incumbent on you, sir. That's incumbent on Ms. Winchell, Dr. Harris, to be telling us the complete truth of it and not just concerned about making himself look like he had a hobby and was not so involved in the contracting with a personal relationship. That's what's disturbing to me. Because this is not your job to do. This is Ms. Winchell's. This is the IG. This is those counsel that you relied on to ask these more substantive questions. And obviously, unfortunately, almost cross-examination of Dr. Harris to get to the truth of the matter.